Okay. Welcome to the ComCat Liaisons Refresher training. This is Rachel and Fest from Flow. I'm also joined by Sydney.
Hi,
And
everyone.
we'll be giving, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
We'll be giving this training about ComCat today. Please feel free to let us know if you have questions or anything as we go, and then we'll also have plenty of time for questions at the end. So on to you, Sydney.
Okay, so we're just going to get started with some basics about the ComCat Help Desk. So the Help Desk is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, except on holidays, which we give advance notices for. Outside of these hours, we do have staff monitoring our emergency email in case of any system outages, and submitting a ticket to the Help Desk is the best and fastest way to get support for any ComCat issue. You can submit a ticket by clicking on the Help Desk tab within ComCat itself, going to the Flow Lib Answers ComCat Help Desk page, or by emailing us. The ComCat Help Desk page also has additional resources, such as FAQs for common issues and quick guides. And we recommend that if you run into any ComCat issues, that you look here first before you submit a ticket. So per our emergency and system down procedures, we first ask that you confirm that the issue is not isolated to your computer or internet connection and check our system status page for any known reported issues. If system issues happen while the help desk is open, you can submit a ticket or call our office for help. And if the help desk is closed, you can send a message to the Flow emergency email. So next, we're going to go over logging in. So for patrons to access ComCat, they need to log in with the same credentials as they have set up in your ILS. And if their PIN changes in your ILS, they will need to log into ComCat with that new PIN, which will then update their account information. When a patron logs into ComCat for the first time, the library that they select during their first login will be permanently tied to their account as their home library and default pickup location. Patrons can then select a new default pickup location in their account settings, but they cannot reset their home library themselves. If a patron selects the wrong library as their home library, please submit a ticket to the help desk asking us to delete the account so that they can re-log in under the correct library. Also, if a patron logs in using a new barcode, ComCat will recognize them as a new patron. So this is why it is important to make sure that their information is updated both in your ILS and in ComCat. So when using Easy Proxy or SSO, ComCat will prompt patrons to select if they are logging in as a staff or patron from a pop-up menu. Selecting patron will take them to their institution sign-on page. And the first time they log in using SSO is when their account will be created. There are two types of staff permissions in ComCat. There's ILL staff and admin permissions. ILL staff can access ILL administration features, including ComCat statistics and reports, and admins can access these same things, but they can also edit user accounts. To activate your two logins, you would log in with the ILL staff or admin and using the password userpass. And a screen will pop up prompting you to select a new password. And please note that usernames in ComCat are not case sensitive, and if you need to reset your staff password, please submit a ticket to the help desk.
I will be talking about search functionality and different displays. So ComCat uses the Z39.50 protocol to search all of the different catalogs connected to it. ComCat is a virtual catalog. There's no central database with records loaded or cataloged in ComCat or anything like that, all virtual. So when you complete a ComCat search, you'll be drawing directly from all of the different catalogs connected to it. And ComCat will show you real-time availability of items. Something to note is that different catalogs can support different kinds of searching. For example, some you may be able to use an and or not search, or you might be able to search by system number, but that won't actually work for everyone's catalog. I'm going to move over to ComCat itself to show you searching instead of going through the slides. So when you go to ComCat, you'll find the main search in the top At the top of the screen, you'll see this when logged in and also when not logged in. You'll find the text box, and then you also have a few different options for selecting different search options at this. So by default, this will be set, the field will be set to keyword, but you could change this. I'd recommend ISBN for the most specific searching when looking for something very specific and you want the search to be more efficient. Icon to the right, select resources, will open up a display that shows all of the different catalogs connected to ComCat. So this is what is being searched every time you just complete a search. All of these will be selected by default, but you could make changes. Something to note is that even if you did select to only search one of these catalogs, when you go to place a request, ComCat will still try to find all potential lenders of the item, not just libraries within the one catalog that you searched. I go to complete a search, you'll see that we do have type ahead suggestions. While ComCat completes the search, you'll see a countdown at the bottom showing how many resources it has left to do. The search was a big one, but it's going fairly quickly. You'll see that we have some preliminary results loaded on the page to give us something to look at. Now that ComCat has completed the search, the button at the bottom says additional results available, update. And so we need to click update to get the full and complete results of the search. The reason for this is that by searching many different catalogs at the same time, this can be slow, and ComCat does load some preliminary results that give you something to look at, but you need to click update to get everything loaded onto the screen. So this is a preview of what the search results screen will look like. We have different options for clusters on or for filtering on the left. We can also change this to a list view or gallery view. And so you'll see that these will be clustered by title and author. So even small differences in title, like punctuation or the author, will cause these to be split up into different clusters. Some clusters will have multiple formats listed, and a cluster could also contain items of different editions. If there's only one format or edition, such as with this DVD item, we can access the request button or add this item to a list directly from this page. If there are multiple formats or editions, we don't have access to those buttons yet. We would need to click into the cluster to select the item that we're looking for. So if we click into one of these, this goes into the middle level of detail, the brief record display, where it lists out the different formats and where these items are coming from. So for example, this top one, we can toggle here to see the owning libraries from the source catalog, just clams. And we can also see the ISBN and some publishing information that tell us the edition, essentially. You can click through these to see location information if present, and the information brief about the item. If we wish to see the most level of detail about this title, we can click on the cover image to find the most level of detail that you can see in ComCat for a title. So again, this is coming from a specific source catalog. This one is coming from Minuteman. We can see information that's coming from the Minuteman catalog. We have access to a request button, and we can see the Minuteman libraries that own this title and real-time availability. So something to note is that even if I place a request from this page, My request is not only going to go to the Minuteman libraries that own this item. ComCat will attempt to find all possible lenders of title, and we'll talk about that in the requesting section as well. That is my searching demonstration. We do have some slides about the search displays are there for reference.
Okay, next I'm going to go over the process of requesting items. So as Raina said, when you request an item from the items record, ComCat will automatically build a lender list of all possible lenders for the item using the mark information in the record. And it doesn't matter from what record you initiate that request, ComCat will attempt to find all potential lenders of that item based on its identifiers. And this is why if you would like to request one specific item from a specific lender, we usually recommend that you edit the lender list yourself, which we can go into how to do a little bit later. And so here below is an example of how the information from the record will look on the lenders list. So a lender list entry for an item will contain the library code, the days that the lending library has to respond to the request, which is set to 4 by default, the item's call number, and the 001 system number. The request will go to the first potential lender on the list, and if it is available, the request will go into pending. If it is not available, the request will skip to the next potential lender and go into retry if all lenders are currently not available. According to our ComCat policy, the lender has 4 days to respond to the request, and if left unfilled, it will automatically go to the next lender. And so this is why if you wish to fill a request, it is important that you use will supply or shipped to prevent it from moving on. When patrons wish to place a request, they can navigate to the record that they want to request and click the blue Request This Item button, which will then prompt them to log in and complete the request form. As staff, using the Request This Item button will prompt you to search for the patron's barcode. Once you select the patron, the request form will automatically populate with the patron's information. While you are logged in as staff, there is no need for the patron's PIN to place a request, and you also have override capabilities to bypass the duplicate requests and local system blocks. You can also add in a borrower's note that can be seen by lenders, and these notes are useful for specifying what copy you're requesting or for otherwise communicating with the lender about the request. And here's just a quick look at the patron lookup bar, which will come up when you are prompted to search for the patron. If the barcode for the patron exists in your ILS, it should appear just below the search box. And clicking on the patron's information will also create a new ComCat account for that patron if they did not already have one. So here you can see the differences in the request form from the staff view and the patron view. The main difference is the option for the borrower's note field on staff view. And while borrower's notes can be seen by the lender, patron notes cannot. So if a patron note adds a note to their request, it will go into awaiting approval, and you will have to manually approve the request before it can be sent out. If the patron note is something important that you want to communicate to the lender, you can copy it into the borrower's note field and then approve the request. In some cases, the automatic lender list build process, which ComCat uses when you use the request this item option, isn't helpful, such as if you need to request a specific item from a specific library and do not want other items to get pulled into the request, or if you don't want ComCat to confuse different volumes or editions of the same record. In this case, you can use the blank ILL request form to manually build a request and enter in lenders to the lender list yourself. And to do this, you will need to know how to build a lender string. So as you can see here, it consists of the library code, the days to respond, the item's call number, and the 001 system number. If a patron tries to request a ComCat item that is owned by their local network and is available and requestable, they'll be prompted to go to their local catalog. And as I said, as staff, you can override this prompt and place the request through ComCat anyway.
Next, I'll be talking about managing requests. We'll be going through the workflows, ILL admin pages, pick list, awaiting approval status, bookstraps, and routing slips. This diagram shows the borrowing workflow. So in the first step, the request gets initiated by staff or patron. Then hopefully the request gets filled by a lending library, and we have a separate workflow showing the lending process. So once the request gets filled, it should get shipped to the borrowing library. Once it arrives, staff can update the status of the request in ComCat to received. Updating the status will trigger a temporary item record to be created in the ILS, and it'll place a hold on that item for the patron. That done, staff are now able to check out the item to the patron in their ILS. Once the patron has used and brought back the item, staff should update the request status in ComCat to returned. This is an essential step to check in the item in the ILS and remove it from the patron's account. Then once the request status is in returned, staff can send the item back to the lending library. Now this diagram shows the lending workflow. So again, the request was initiated by staff or by patron. ComCat builds a list of all possible lenders and then sends the request to the first possible lender on the list. If that item's available, the request should show up in pending in the lender's dashboard. In many libraries, they will also get a hold in their ILS on that item, although configuration varies. If staff intend to fill this request, the next step is to update the request status to shipped. So for some libraries, the item's barcode is automatically supplied in the request in ComCat. And for some libraries, they need to scan in the barcode themselves at this step. Everyone should verify that the item barcode is correct at this step, even if ComCat did supply it. Updating the request status to shipped will automatically check out the item in the lending library's ILS, and it'll check it out to the borrowing library's account. Once the request is in ship status, staff can go into ComCat and print a bookstrap and attach that in a routing slip and then send the item to the borrowing library. So now we've arrived at the borrowing workflow. Once that's complete and the item has made it back to the lending library, staff should update the request to check in ComCat to complete the request. This is an important step because it checks the item back in the ILS, and it also moves the request into complete status in ComCat. And requests incomplete do get automatically deleted after 7 days. Sometimes libraries can tend to skip the check-in step in ComCat and leave requests in returned. They might be checking in the item separately in their ILS, but the problem with this is that then the request will stay in returned for a very long time, seemingly indefinitely, and it'll show up in returned for both the borrowing library and the lending library in their staff dashboards, and it will never get completed in ComCat until staff update it to check in ComCat. We always recommend that staff make sure to update the status in ComCat, which also checks it in the ILS. This is a look at some of the ILL admin pages that staff can use to manage active requests in ComCat. If you log in as staff, you'll find the ILL admin tab in the staff dashboard. The request manager is one useful page that lists statuses, and you can click into a status to view all requests in that status. We also have the borrower requests page and the lender requests page. Both of these list all borrower requests or all lender requests and are searchable by many fields. And finally, the search by request number allows staff to enter a request number to pull up that exact request. This is the request manager, which has had some changes in 2026 and now has a new look and feel. It still does the same thing though. It organizes statuses by role, borrower or lender, and then lists out the statuses. You can click on a status name to view all requests in that status. The tab on the top right, all active and unreviewed notes, allows staff to select the display. All will show every status, even if the library has no requests in that status at the moment. Active will show you only statuses that the library has active requests in. And unreviewed notes, which is also a new thing, will show any statuses with requests that have unreviewed notes. This selection can be changed at any time, but it is sticky. So if staff select active, active will be the display that shows the next time that they look at this page. The pick list is something that libraries can use when they have pending lender requests to fill. If you go to the request manager and navigate to the lender's pending list, if the library does have potential requests to fill, they will see a list of those requests in the status. And at the top right, clicking on pick list will pull up a printable list of those items. Staff could potentially use to pull items off the shelf. Awaiting approval is one status that may need staff attention. So if a patron places a request and leaves a patron note, or if the patron has limited permissions in ComCat, which is possible but not common, the request will go into awaiting approval as soon as it is submitted. It will not go to any potential lenders. This is mainly because patron notes cannot be seen by the lending library. They can only be seen by the patron's own library. So if staff want a lending library to see any message that the patron has left when submitting the request, staff can go into the request, copy the text into the borrower's notes field, which the lending library can see, and then move the request on using approved send. Requests in awaiting approval do not move automatically. They do not move along to potential lenders without staff action. They will sit there seemingly indefinitely. It is a very long time. Book straps are required by ComCat policy, and they should be attached to every book that is sent out in ComCat. So once a lender has updated a request to shipped, they can go into the ILL admin tab and click on print book straps to find the book straps to print. This will print 2 book straps per page. We also have a template and instructions for printing on Avery sticker templates if libraries prefer to do that. In the print book straps page, you can actually find book straps for all statuses, not just requests in the ship status. So if a library is a borrowing library with a request and receives an item without a book strap or with a damaged book strap, they could potentially print a new one, and then they can send that item back with a book strap. And for delivery, all items should have routing slips. So please make sure to include the library name exactly as it appears in the delivery index, and follow instructions from MLS and Optima for anything related to slips and delivery. An incorrect library name can lead to issues with delivery. And we do have blank slips available on the help desk page in ComCat if you need those.
So next, I'm going to go over the reports and statistics that we provide. So to view reports in ComCat, you log in as staff and click on the Reports tab. When in the Reports tab, available reports are listed on the left-hand column, and you would click on the name of the report to automatically download it. Reports are also available via a shared Google Drive folder. Examples of reports provided by Flow include our Stayed Too Long report, which is updated quarterly and shows all reports that have idled in ComCat for more than 30 days. This report can help you keep track of lost items or any requests that should be deleted or completed. Our year-to-date statistics report are updated monthly and detail borrowing and lending requests by month and are organized by both library and by network. Our activity reports are also updated monthly and include an itemized list of active requests and their current status.
Next up is policies. You can find the complete ComCat policy document on the policies page that you'll be able to see in ComCat when logged in as staff. This page includes language about responsibilities of libraries participating in ComCat, including responsibility for lost and damaged items. The patron FAQ and privacy policy pages, which are visible for everyone, including guests, include additional information about ComCat use and policies. For loan period and renewals, the ComCat loan period should always be 56 days. This should be set up in the circulation rules for the lending library. So it shouldn't be something that you need to think about often unless it's not working correctly. 56 days should always set the due date of the request in ComCat. This should account for transit to the borrowing library, a 28-day checkout to the borrowing patron, and then transit back to the lending library. Renewals are not allowed in ComCat by policy. So although staff may see the option to renew a request or to request a renewal, this is not set up in ComCat and it will not update the due date for a loan in the. We always recommend that libraries communicate directly with each other if they need to discuss a due date. Patrons can have a maximum of 10 active requests. Only some statuses count as active: awaiting approval, pending, pending cancel, shipped, not received, received, and retry would be the common statuses that count towards the patron's limit. There are some less commonly used statuses that also count, and we have a page with a complete list linked. So requests in retry status do count towards the patron's limit of 10. If a patron has placed a lot of requests and items may not be available, those requests might not be actively getting filled, and this is causing issues with them hitting up against their request limit, then staff can go in and may need to clear out some of those old requests by canceling or deleting them. Please note that requests in canceled status and unfilled status do not count towards the limit. That has not always been the case. For lost items and billing, if a ComCat item is overdue, then no overdue fines should be collected by the lending library. The borrowing library can fine their own patron as according to their own local policy. However, the borrowing library is responsible for a lost or damaged item. The borrowing library is responsible for an item as soon as it leaves the lending library. If an item gets lost, then the lending library can bill the borrowing library accordingly for the item. And the borrowing library could choose to pass that bill along to their patron if a patron has lost or damaged the item. If an item is lost in delivery, then the lending library could submit a claim with the delivery service. And this process is outlined in the MLS delivery guide. They do ask that you wait for an item to have been lost for at least 2 months, but no longer than 1 year. All billing should take place outside of ComCat. ComCat has no billing functionality built in. It can take place between the lending library and the borrowing library, or between the borrowing library and their own patron. The patron should never be billed directly by the lending library or be in contact with. Patrons will be blocked from placing duplicate requests in ComCat, meaning if a patron has a request on a title and they attempt to place a second request on the same title, ComCat will block them from placing that second request. Patrons don't have the ability to get past this block, but if placing the request as staff on behalf of a patron, staff do have the ability to override if needed, such as if placing requests for a book club. If a library is going to be closed for a holiday that exceeds a couple of days, They should be closed in ComCat so that they don't get new lending requests during that time. For reference, a library is always given 4 days to respond to a new lending request. And the days to respond typically only include Monday through Friday, although that can be customized by library. So for something like a single day holiday, no action is needed to close the library in ComCat because the library will still have multiple days to respond to any new requests. If they will be closed for several days in which they're not checking new requests or able to fill them, then they should be closed to lending in ComCat so requests don't go to them and sit unfilled. Staff can contact the help desk to turn off lending for any closed dates. If a library is going to be unable to process borrowing requests for a significant amount of time, they can reach out to the help desk about options for turning off borrowing or removing a library as a pickup location.
Okay, next I'm going to go over some advanced topics. So first, going back over the lender list, this slide again shows a more in-depth explanation of the lender list and the components needed to build a lender list entry. So just to recap once again, the lender list entry for an item will contain the library code, which can be found under the location column of the Where to Find It section, the dates the lending library has to respond, which again is 4 by default, the item's call number, and the 001 system number, which will display at the top of the full record display. The request history is a helpful place to first look if you run into any processing issues with a request. To view the request history, you will need to open up the request in the full record display and scroll down to history information. Here you can find notes and NSIP processing errors, timestamps and the status changes, and who each status change was initiated by. You can also view who created the request and from what record the request was initiated from. So determining requestability versus availability. So determining if an item can be requested relies on lendability and availability of the item. The Where to Find It section of the full record display will show if copies are requestable and available. If an item is in a requestable location and is currently available, it can be requested. If an item is not in a requestable location, it will have the not requestable designation next to the location name. As you can see in this chart, if an item is both available and requestable, the lender will be added to the lenders list and the request will go through to them and be pending. If the item is not currently available, but the lender is requestable, ComCat will still add the lender to the list, but will skip them, and then they will go into retry. If an item is not lendable, the lender will not be added to the lenders list. So speaking of retry and unfilled are two statuses that you might see requests go into when requestable lenders are unavailable. Requests go into retry when there are potential lenders, but the item is not currently available. This can mean something like all copies are checked out, the lender missed the response deadline, or a lender is closed temporarily. Requests in retry are automatically resent after 21 days, or staff can manually resend the request at any time using the approved send status. Requests will go into unfilled when there are no potential lenders for the request in ComCat. This can mean that no lenders are available and that all copies are not lendable, the lender is currently closed, or that ComCat was unable to add lenders to the list using the automatic lender list build process. If you see a request go into unfilled, but there are requestable and available lenders in ComCat, you can manually add the lenders to the lenders list and approve send the request. Requests in unfilled will not move until staff action is taken and new lenders are found. They will expire after the need by date passes. So when choosing not to send an item, staff may select a reason that will determine if the library will be considered as a lender in the future. If the item is currently in use, for example, but will be available later, the lender will be retried at a later date. If the item is not available to be lent, such as if it is lost, It will be unfilled by that lender. If ComCat adds you to a lender as a request for an item or volume that your library does not own, we recommend that you select Will Not Supply, an item not owned as the reason, so that the request can move on to the next lender. So next, talking about ZMaps, ComCat uses Z3950 protocols to search through all records, which are called Z targets. Each network provides a ZMap that determines which items and locations in their system should be considered requestable and available in ComCat. As locations and values can change, we ask you for updated ZMaps periodically. If maps are not updated, then locations and items will not show as requestable and will not be added to requests. ZMaps should be structured as shown here, with 3 columns for the location name in your system, the library name or the library name alongside the not requestable designation, and the ILL code, which should only be included for requestable locations.
I'll be going through some of the best practices and resources for troubleshooting in ComCat. Contact information for every library is available in ComCat. We always recommend that library staff reach out directly to a library trading partner if they have any questions about an item or a request. Contact information can be found if a library has an open request. If they open up the request in the full record display and scroll down to the lender or borrower section, they will see the information, including an email address and phone number. If a library does not have an open request but wishes to get in touch with the ComCat contact for a library, they can go into the ILL admin tab and down to search library information, which allows them to search by library name to pull up the contact information for that library. Just a note about library contact information, library staff should tell us if they need to update the ILL contact information that's in ComCat so that we can keep that up to date and useful. Library profile information, including contact information, can be found in ComCat in the participant record. This is also located in the ILL admin section. Library staff can read but not edit the participant record. They can submit a ticket to the help desk if they need to make any changes to the information. Some areas of interest include the library name and address, the ILL contact, holiday list of any closures, and patron and staff notices set up to send from ComCat. I'll be going through a little bit of NSIP troubleshooting, keeping this to an overview. During the request process, ComCat and the ILS communicate through what is called NSIP, at least for most of you. ILS upgrades, configuration changes, or any downtime, they all impact NSIP and consequently will impact patrons or staff using ComCat. Here's a summary of the main NSIP exchanges made between ComCat and the ILS. ComCat initiates and the ILS responds back. We have request item when a request is made. This can put a hold on the item in ILS, although configuration varies. Checkout item, that's when a request is set to shipped. The item will check out in the ILS. Accept item, when a request is updated to received, and this creates a temporary item record in ILS and puts a hold on item for a patron. And check-in item, which happens when the request is updated to returned, and also when a request is updated to check-in and ComCat to complete. I'm not going to go into the messages in detail about exactly what they include, but this list is here for reference as you may see these named in ComCat, especially if something goes wrong when updating a status. And they are essential in ensuring that the correct action is triggered in the ILS when a status change is made in ComCat. Here are a few of the most common NSIP problems that might come up when updating status. Updating to received from shipped. most commonly causes problems because it triggers the item record to be created in the ILS and a hold to be placed on the item for the patron. If anything prevents those things from happening in the ILS, the status change will fail. When a staff attempt to update a request to received and it will not update and it stays in shipped, they will usually see a message in ComCat that says something about it failing and may include some additional information. If that error message includes anything like unknown user, that indicates that the patron's barcode in ComCat may not be recognized by the ILS, maybe it has been changed, and we have some instructions for fixing that if you are able. If the message mentions anything like duplicate item, that can indicate that there's already an item record in the ILS that exists with the same item barcode as the one you're trying to receive. If it's possible to resolve that by removing the duplicate in the ILS, staff will be able to receive the item. And then sometimes the error message doesn't include anything specific, and it's always good to check if the patron's account has any restrictions, like a patron category restriction, they've reached a maximum number of holds, any blocks, fees, or fines, and that's all in the ILS, not in ComCat. Check the patron's account before trying to receive again. Additionally, if there's no specific information, checking for a duplicate item is always useful. If an issue cannot be resolved and a request just cannot be updated to received, the Receive Disable NSIP status provides an option to move the request into Receive status in ComCat without using NSIP to create a temporary item record in the ILS or a hold. So if using Receive Disable NSIP, staff will need to manually go into the ILS and create an item record to use to check out the item to their patron. Receive Disable NSIP is a good option when something cannot be resolved, but we always recommend trying to solve the original issue if possible. And a few last common problems to mention. Sometimes an item might appear to be requestable and available in ComCat, but a request is going straight to unfilled. Some things to look for: check the item record in the catalog and see if it might be missing a system number. The system number is necessary for the ComCat to go through. You can also look at location information in the catalog display. If location is blank, that might mean that the item could be unmapped and it cannot be requested. Or is the item that you see in the catalog maybe not being considered a match for the request based on identifying information? ComCat will always try to use information in the record from which the request was placed to find all possible matches. There's a whole matching process. It's possible that matches may not be being found based on incomplete information or lack of identifiers. So this is a place that staff could try to manually edit the lender list to send the request to a specific library if they're comfortable doing so. Or they could also try to place a new request but initiate it from a different record. That's not a complete list of possible issues, and it's not necessary to do extensive troubleshooting, but these are just a few things to be aware of that can cause issues. We have FAQ pages that go through many of these issues with explanations and instructions.
Okay, so now I'm going to quickly go over some new features and updates on bugs in ComCat. So as of this spring, changes have been made to the Request Manager display, as we went over earlier. The Request Manager still organizes by status, and clicking on the status name will go to the list of requests in that status. And you can use the All, Active, and Unreviewed Notes tabs to change the display. As further updates to the Request Manager display are made, we will continue to keep you updated. And we also have an FAQ page detailing more information about the Request Manager display changes. All requests with a borrower or lender's note will now display a message at the top of the full record display. After clicking on that note, you can acknowledge the note to mark it as read, and this update is helpful for making notes more visible and noticeable for staff. Next, we're going to talk about turning off that request item message. So when requests are placed in ComCat, a request item message is sent to the ILS of the lending library. For most libraries, this message creates a hold on the item in their ILS. It is now possible to turn off this request item message from the ComCat side, and if disabled, the library will not receive a hold in their ILS for new lender requests, and you must physically check ComCat to see any pending lender requests. But we can also enable staff email notifications that will send an email when a new lender request is submitted. This setting cannot be changed by staff, so if you are interested in turning this off, please submit a ticket to the help desk. And so some statuses are not reversible in ComCat, such as return status or complete or check-in, but following an update that will happen today, shipped and received statuses can be undone. Undo shipped is available as a status until the borrower updates the request to receive, and undo received can be used by the borrowing library until the request is updated to returned. Using undo shipped will move a request back into pending status, and the deadline to respond date will be recalculated. It will also check the item back in and place another hold in the ILS. Undo received will move the request back into its prior status, and for libraries using NSIP, undoing the received status does not remove the hold from the patron's account, and staff must delete the temporary record and hold manually. Once the request is updated to received again, another temporary record will be created in the ILS. So for many years, staff and patrons could not place requests on items cataloged as serials due to a long-standing bug. So the request would not go through and would default to non-returnable requests, which are not allowed in our ComCat system. This bug has since been corrected, and staff and patrons can now request serial items as usual. However, with serial and multi-volume requests, requesting can be tricky because the automatic lender list build process will attempt to pull in all possible lenders of the title, which could include unwanted volumes or editions if they contain the same identifiers. If a patron is looking for a specific edition, format, or volume, you should specify this information using a borrower's note and using the editions/volumes needed field. And if you are comfortable with the lender list building process, you can also use a blank ILO request to create the request from scratch and send it to specific lenders that you know have the correct volume or edition. For systems that get holds in their ILS when there's a pending lender request, the hold might sometime attach to the wrong item if there is conflicting information, such as the same ISBN number between two items. You should always check and go with the title and volume listed in ComCat in the actual request when filling it. The request might also go to one library in ComCat, but in the ILS, it'll place a hold for a copy owned by a different library in the same network. And this could happen if one library's copy is requestable in ComCat, but has hold restrictions in the ILS. You should only fill ComCat requests with your own items, and do not fill one of your ComCat requests with another library's item. And we ask that you please reach out if you have any persistent or ongoing problems with holds in your ILS. Okay, next we're going to open it up for questions.
So I always make this request, but can we get a copy of the slide deck, which is very helpful? Thank you. And
Yes, I'll send that out with the recording after the.
I've forgotten the time for how long things hang out in pass to local system. I think it used to be forever and now it deletes after a certain time, or
I am not sure what the number of days is with past the local
it's
system.
not
I can
critical,
check on that.
just not a critical thing, but you've got so many other dates that I was picking up today that I was just thinking that was the one I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll look into that one. a lot of those statuses that requests can stay in a long time, like returned or awaiting approval, the number of days is often like 400 or something very long. I'm not sure the past the local system is like that.
Well, I appreciated the deletion earlier. Was it just this year? But the deletion of the awaiting approvals was very helpful.
Yes,
So,
we did some cleanup on those, and we do have the ability to like batch update or batch delete requests in statuses like that. So if anyone does need cleanup like that, that's something that we can help with.
and I love the changes in the undo shipped and undo received. We already had those, they just had different settings, right? I mean, they're just changing how it works a little. Does that sound right to you? Because I know we've used undo shipped,
Yeah,
and I
I
think
think before it was like something that you'd have to do immediately after changing the status. So like before it actually took hold in the ILS. And now you can change those statuses up until the borrower marks it as received or until the item is returned. So you get a little more time to notice and correct any issues.
which is awesome. The undos are very helpful things. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions before we end?
And thanks for doing these. Refreshers are always good.
No problem. And it's nice to be able to highlight some new things as well.
Mhm. You can also send out the recording and slides to your libraries, and then we're also going to have a training for staff in the fall.
There was one tiny quibble. It wasn't a slide, but at one point you were mentioning that people can put a request into will supply. And I think that was something we were telling people not to do because the will supply should just be a problem flag.
Got it. Yeah. Um,
And also because it
yeah,
never comes out of there. If they leave it there, it doesn't. So
right,
it's
exactly.
just if you were sending it out at all, that was my only uh excuse me, niggling, nagging point. Sorry.
Right. Sorry about that. Yeah, we just wanted to make the point that requests should be updated to ship as soon as like you're able to ship the item because we do have some cases where the request will be shipped, but then the status was never updated. So in ComCat, the lender can't see it on the request dashboard anymore because it moved on to another lender. However, they already sent out the item. So just trying to prevent that from happening.
Does it still put the red flags the day before it's about to move on or the day it's about to move on overnight? Um,
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I believe that you'll see flags when looking at a list of requests in one of the request manager pages or like the lender requests page. It will show you a symbol if it has notes or if it is about to go away.
cool. Thank you. I will make it a point to remind people.
Yep, and you can also send out the slides if you don't want to send the recording because we did include some things maybe more
I
specific to you
was,
all. So send out the slides or ask us if you need any different kinds of materials.
yeah, we're one of those, as you know, we're one of those systems that doesn't place it in the ILS, so that can confuse people. But they're good slides, though. I really appreciate getting them. Very helpful to be able to give people stuff they can look at.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I hope everyone's enjoying the beautiful weather and we'll send out the follow-up materials.
Thanks again.
Thank you.